Good evening, friends. Tonight, we will travel back 1,000 years to the northern Song Dynasty, to the most prosperous city in the world at that time, the eastern capital, Liang, to take a look at that era depicted in countless poems and painted scrolls as dreamlike and fantastical. What would a single day actually look like for an ordinary person with no protagonist's halo? Now dim the lights, and as the bell tolls, let us enter tonight's story together. The sky hasn't brightened yet. It's roughly the end of the hour of the tiger and the beginning of the hour of the rabbit. You roll over, and the wooden plank bed lets out a faint creak. The air still carries the chill of the late night through the window lattice. Outside is an ink blue so deep it seems bottomless. The entire city of Bianjing, this mega metropolis boasting a population of 1.5 million, is immersed at this moment in the quietest time of the day. But this quietness has layers. You prick up your ears and can hear, faintly in the distance, a certain continuous rumbling sound. It isn't thunder. It's the noise made by typing carts hauling goods outside the city walls. Those carts are enormous, like mobile little houses, with a dozen or even more than 20 mules hitched up front. The wheels are as tall as the carriage itself, and behind the cart trail, two angled wooden beams with a large iron bell hanging from the end. As the cart moves, the bell clangs and clatters, warning distant vehicles and pedestrians to make way. This sound is the earliest pulse of Bianjing, heavy and slow, carrying a sense of mission to wake the entire city. You're still awake, but your body lingers under the covers. The bed can't exactly be called comfortable, just a few wooden planks pieced together, topped with a layer of straw and covered with a coarse cloth mattress. The house you live in is equally simple. Round earth walls, a thatched roof, the most common type of dwelling in this splendid capital, squeezed into an alley called Xiaoshan Shui Lane. Just as you're drifting off, about to fall asleep again, a deep and resonant drumbeat comes from the direction of the imperial palace. Dong 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 dong, dong 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 dong. This is no ordinary drum beat. It comes from the signal drum atop the drum tower beside Wenda Hall at the southern gate of the imperial city. This drumbeat is the official reveille for all of Bianjing. Like a stone cast into a still lake, the ripples of sound spread outward ring by ring, passing through palace halls, over the inner city walls, and reaching the ears of ordinary citizens like you. Immediately after, from somewhere closer, comes an entirely different sound. Dang, dang, dang. It's a crisp, rhythmic, metallic tapping, accompanied by unhurried footsteps moving from the mouth of the alley into the quiet distance. This isn't someone from the government, it's a wandering monk from a nearby temple, come to announce the time. They hold a small iron plaque or a wooden fish, walking along the residence gates, tapping as they go, using this gentler, more folk-like method to tell everyone dawn is approaching, time to get up. It's rather interesting, actually. Just a few decades ago, during the reign of Emperor Renzong, the city still had street drums. Those were used to enforce curfew. Drums beat at sunset to close the ward gates. Drums beat at sunrise to open them again. Thoroughly militaristic in character. Later, as Bianjing grew ever more prosperous, night markets sprang up, ward walls were torn down, and that strict curfew system became a dead letter. The street drums were naturally abolished, and so this method of temple monks announcing the hour became the city's new alarm clock. But what did the northern Song capital actually sound like? From books like Eastern Capital, A Dream of Splendor, we can read about the clamor of carriages and horses, the bustle of markets. But strangely, we rarely find descriptions of temple bells, a stark contrast with Tang Dynasty poetry, which is filled with images like from Cold Mountain Temple beyond the walls of Gusu, the midnight bell reaches the traveler's boat. Was Bianjing simply too noisy, drowning out the bells? Or had the cultural focus of the Song people already shifted from the Chan infused religious atmosphere of the Tang toward a more secular, commercialized urban life? This question probably has no definitive answer. For you, these sounds simply bury life itself. The imperial drums are an official announcement. The iron plaques of the temple monks are a friendly reminder. And the distant wheels and bells are the never-ceasing background music of this city. You finally stretch lazily. A new day has truly begun. You sit up and face the first challenge of every day. What to wear? Don't laugh in the Song Dynasty. This was no trivial matter. Your wardrobe offers limited choices. Just a few short jackets, long trousers, and one round-collared robe. But even these few options are laden with rules and customs. First, the material. As a commoner, you are absolutely forbidden from wearing silk. According to the clothing regulations recorded in the history of the Song, fine fabrics like damask, gauze, silk, and satin are reserved exclusively for officials and the wealthy. Ordinary people, scholars, farmers, artisans, merchants must obediently wear hemp or cotton. It's said that even beggars on the street had to dress to a certain standard. If you dressed too shabbily or violated the rules, you'd be condemned by public opinion. This strict dress code was like an invisible net, clearly marking every person's status and position in society. You pick up a dark indigo short jacket, the most common, safest color choice. Of course, you'd like to wear something brighter, a vivid red, for instance. But you know that the bright red dyed from sapwood is the color for official robes of officials ranked 4th grade and above. A commoner wearing it would invite trouble, so your options fall among the affordable and regulation-compliant colors that plant dyes can provide. The only brightly colored garment in your wardrobe is a tawny yellow robe, dyed with gardenia fruit. Gardenia dye is convenient. The resulting color is vibrant. Even imperial garments in the Qin and Han dynasties were dyed with it. But it has one fatal flaw. It's extremely sensitive to sunlight. After a few wearings, the color fades and the garment looks old. So today, you've chosen the durable dark blue-black short jacket once again. This color is usually achieved with 2 types of plant dyes. One uses leaves from the Chinese parasol tree. When the leaves are mordanted together with iron implements, you get a grayish black. Repeated dyeing deepens the color, perfect for working people like you who need something dirt-resistant. The other, more common option is the famous indigo plant, the raw material for making indigo dye. The indigo plants are soaked and fermented. Then lime is added to produce the dye. The blue-green it yields is steady and color-fast, the primary clothing color of commoners. However, where there are policies above, there are countermeasures below. Though the laws are strict, as the commercial economy grows more developed, wealthy merchants always want to dress more presentably to flaunt their wealth. They'll secretly line their garments with fine fabrics, or push the boundaries in the details of their patterns. This kind of minor transgression was extremely common at the time, both an aspiration for higher social status and a silent form of showing off. The authorities probably turned a blind eye to it. As long as you weren't brazenly wearing dragon robes, they generally wouldn't come after you. You fasten your belt, tuck your dark blue trouser legs into cloth socks, and look at the plainly dressed but clean and neat person in the mirror. Not bad, you think? These clothes are like your identity card, telling everyone you are an honest, hard-working citizen of Beijing, not wealthy, but living with dignity. Dressed, it's time to groom yourself. You walk to a small wooden rack in the corner of the room. On it sits your toiletry set, a copper basin, a copper mirror, and 2 combs. You pour some cold water into the basin and wipe your face with a cloth towel. Then you pick up the copper mirror. It's polished bronze with green patina creeping along the edges. The mirror surface is hazy, showing only the rough outline of a figure features, veiled, as if behind a fog. This forces you every morning into a kind of blind man's elephant self-examination. Today's self still looks human-shaped. That's good enough. The real main event is combing your hair. Like most people in the Song Dynasty, you keep your hair long. This is the tradition of the body. Hair and skin are received from one's parents, and a mark of civilized people. So combing your hair neatly each day and coiling it into a top knot is an indispensable routine. You first use a wide-toothed wooden comb to roughly detangle your knotted hair. This comb is made of boxwood or jujube wood, simple craftsmanship of sawing, cutting teeth, and polishing. Then you pick up another, more refined comb, the EBB comb. This is the core tool of your personal hygiene, much finer than the wooden comb. It's made of slender bamboo strips and oxbone, with a lacquered frame that looks quite elegant. Its primary function is not styling, it's for combing out lice and nits from your hair. Yes, you heard right, lice. In an age without shampoo, where public sanitation leaves much to be desired, keeping hair clean is an arduous battle, and the RDB comb is your most important weapon. The EB comb in your hand comes from Changzhou, the most famous brand in the country. There's even a fantastical legend about its making. Supposedly, a single small Changzhou B comb requires 72.5 steps to produce. Why such an odd number? Because the patriarch of this craft was named Chen Shizi, and he passed away at the age of 73. To avoid the folk superstition that at 73, ghosts come calling, the craftsman deliberately stated the number of steps as 72.5. This was both a tribute to the patriarch and an added layer of mystique to the craft, an ancient version of brand storytelling and marketing. From selecting the bamboo, splitting it, and making the teeth, to using oxbone for the spine, applying lacquer, and threading every step embodies the craftsman's painstaking effort. This spirit of relentless refinement turns even this small everyday item in your hand into a work of art. Yet there seems to be a peculiar contradiction between personal hygiene and urban public sanitation in the Song Dynasty. On one hand, based on various texts and unearthed artifacts, Song people placed great emphasis on personal grooming. They had all manner of elaborate washing implements, and there were even specialized apothecaries selling face-washing compounds products, akin to soap and facial cleanser. On the other hand, urban public sanitation may not have been ideal. Garbage disposal and sewage drainage were major problems. The result was that no matter how clean you kept yourself, the moment you stepped outside, you might still pick up all sorts of bacteria and parasites. The popularity of tools like the EB comb is precisely a testament to the fact that personal cleanliness in those days was an endless battle against the larger environment. You carefully draw the EBA comb from roots to tips, confirming no uninvited guests are present, then deftly coil your long hair into a top knot atop your head, securing it with a simple wooden hairpin. Looking at the blurry but tidy reflection in the bronze mirror, you nod with satisfaction. Right time to go out for breakfast. You push open the creaky wooden door, and a rush of cool air hits you, mingled with cooking smoke, dust, and the scent of green grass. Daylight has arrived, and sounds of life begin to fill the alley. Neighbors emerge carrying wooden basins to dump water or shouldering tools as they head to work. You nod in greeting, then merge into the gradually crowding streets to seek out today's breakfast. You don't have to go far. There's a bustling morning market right at the street corner. In the Song Dynasty, especially in a major city like Beijing, eating out at a restaurant or a street stall is the most ordinary thing in the world. The food industry here is developed to an astonishing degree. Pai, the eastern capital, a dream of splendor and alone, records two types of flatbread shops, oil cake shops and griddle cake shops. Oil cake shops sell steamed cakes and sugar cakes, while griddle cake shops sell a dizzying array of baked flatbreads, some oil cakes, chrysanthemum cakes, broad strip cakes, layered cakes, and more. From before dawn, the sound of shop owners kneading dough, that is, working the dough, portioning it, and crimping the edges echoes throughout the neighborhood. You don't feel like eating flatbread today, although the kind of steamed cake that Wudalang sells is very filling. You just had it yesterday. You walk straight toward a small stall, billowing with steam. The vendor is busy fishing things out of a large pot. You have plenty of choices. You could have a piping hot bowl of porridge millet, or rice, the most basic option. When Fan Zhangjian was young and destitute, he would cook a pot of millet porridge each day, let it cool and solidify, then slice it into 4 pieces with a knife, eating 1 piece per meal. This is the famous story of slicing porridge to eat. Of course, your life now is much better than that. You could also choose mantu, though Song Dynasty mantu are not the plain white steamed buns we know today, but rather stuffed buns. The Southern Song text Mengliang Lu records over a dozen varieties: sugar meat buns, lamb buns, bamboo shoot and pork buns, fish buns, and more, a dazzling selection. Or you might have a bowl of wontons. This food was called a universal dish of the realm as early as the Northern and Southern dynasties. And by the Song, it was even more beloved. But today you want something special. You walk over to a stall that sells Yanzi herbal drinks. Yinzi were extremely popular beverages in the Song Dynasty, somewhat like today's herbal functional drinks or cooling teas. These drink stalls sold heat-relieving concoctions in summer and cold-dispelling ones in winter, each with its own formula. For example, sour plum soup brewed from smoked plums, licorice, and dried tangerine peel was a summer bestseller. You order a bowl of perilla, shushwing, boiled herbal water. This is no ordinary beverage. It has quite a pedigree. Song people were especially fond of making drinks with various aromatics, and Emperor Renzong himself was a Huishiyas enthusiast. It's said that once, on a whim, he ordered the imperial physicians of the Hanlin Medical Academy to conduct a formal evaluation and ranking of the various shushwing drinks popular on the market at the time, scoring them on appearance, taste, aroma, health benefits, and other criteria. In the end, this perilla shushwing emerged as the champion. Perilla leaves are warm in nature, capable of dispersing wind cold, promoting qi circulation, and harmonizing the stomach. They're especially good in summer for aiding digestion, relieving heat, and preventing colds. Being able to drink an Emperor-certified championship beverage makes you feel your quality of life has gone up a notch today. Holding a warm bowl of perilla shushwing and a vegetable bun from the stall next door, you find a low stool by the roadside and sit down. The slightly sweet, aromatic liquid slides down your throat, dispelling the last traces of the morning chill. Watching the bustling crowds on the street, you think, being an ordinary citizen in this great city feels pretty good. After breakfast, you need to hurry to work. Today's job is at a large warehouse in the Wharf District, temporary manual labor. The journey is not short, which gives you a full experience of Baiyonjing's morning rush hour. Coming out of Xiaoshanshui Lane, you turn onto a somewhat wider street called Gaotu Street. The road surface here is better paved with stone slabs, but still riddled with potholes. It seems to have rained lightly last night. Puddles and mud still linger on the road. You carefully skirt around one puddle after another, thinking to yourself, Baiyonjing looks glamorous, but this drainage system doesn't seem all that great. Thinking that, though, would be doing them a disservice. In fact, the Song Dynasty's urban drainage systems were world-class for their time. Although this small lane under your feet is muddy, beneath the city's main roads and core areas, there may well be an extremely sophisticated underground drainage network. The most famous example is the Fushao drainage system built in Ganzhou, Jiangxi Dero. It was a complete underground sewer system, scientifically designed. It not only effectively drained rainwater and sewage, but also used ponds within the city as reservoirs to regulate water volume. and even incorporated structures at pipe bends to facilitate debris removal. This system was so successful that 1,000 years later, parts of it are still in use. But what did Song Dynasty cities really look like? In paintings like Along the River, during the Qingming festival, streets are wide, shops are orderly, a picture of prosperity. But that painting, after all, depicts the city's most central, most bustling section. For the secondary streets and alleyways where most residents lived, conditions were likely quite different. Most probably, urban construction at the time followed a model of prioritized development. Main thoroughfares like Imperial Street were built magnificently, while the capillary-like small roads deep in residential areas were left to their own devices, maintained by the residents themselves. This stark contrast may be what a real three-dimensional Beijing actually looked like. As you walk, you dodge the increasingly congested traffic on the road. Pedestrians jostle shoulder to shoulder, but the real road bullies are the livestock and vehicles. Most common are donkeys and mules, the most efficient and economical short-distance transport at the time, hauling goods or carrying riders, weaving nimbly through the crowd. Then you see two distinctly different types of ox carts. One is the flat-headed cart, a smaller vehicle with a long round wooden shaft out front, hitched to a single ox. The driver walks alongside, holding the rope attached to the ox's nose ring. This type of cart is the workhorse for short-haul transport within the city, carrying vegetables, cloth, and timber between markets and shops. The other is the source of the sound you heard this morning, the E-typing cart. This vehicle is an absolute behemoth on the road, massive body, astonishing load capacity, hitched to several oxen or a dozen-plus mules arranged in 2 rows, front and back. The driver sits between 2 wooden shafts extending from the front, deftly commanding this enormous procession. These carts handle long-distance intercity freight, bringing grain and silk from the south into the capital and shipping the capital's handicrafts across the country. When one rumbles past you, you feel the entire ground trembling. Your destination today is the wharves along the Bian River, the hub of the city's waterway transport. The Bian River, Kai River, Jinshui River, and other waterways cut through the entire city, making Beijing a metropolis with extraordinarily developed water transport. From afar, you can already see dense forest of sails on the river, and hear the boatman's call and response chants. You quicken your pace, afraid of being late to work. You arrive at the warehouse by the Bian River, panting. The scene is already one of frantic activity. Ships are pulling into dock. Porters chant in unison as they hoist sacks of grain and bundles of cloth from the ships. Then, carry them into the warehouse. You find the foreman and receive your assignment for the day. Today's job is to work with a group of veteran workers, sorting a shipment of lacquerware freshly arrived from Wenzhou. These pieces are extremely fine and need to be handled with care. You quickly discover that the craftsmen and porters here all belong to an organization called a Aigsu Wo, essentially a Song Dynasty guild. In Beijing at the time, virtually every trade, all 360 of them, had its own guild organization. The flatbread shops you saw this morning belong to the Flatbread Shop Guild. Druggists have their own apothecary guild. Even flower sellers have their own flower association. If you want to do business in a trade, you must join the corresponding guild register and submit to the guild's oversight. Guilds would uniformly evaluate the quality and price of goods and also serve as guarantors for their members. In a sense, the guild was the patriarch of the entire trade. While carefully moving a black lacquered wooden crate, you listen to the veteran workers chatting. They're complaining about the government's recent Keluo compulsory requisition. Keluo was a system by which the government apportioned goods and labor obligations to merchants. For instance, if the government needed to host a banquet requiring large quantities of meat, it would simply issue an order to the meat guild, demanding delivery by a specified date. These requisitions were often crushingly heavy, leaving merchants miserable. But the existence of guilds gave merchants a channel to negotiate with the government. One old worker proudly recounts a glorious episode. Just a few years ago, the head of Kaifeng Prefecture's meat guild, a man named Su Zhongjing, united all the city's butchers and made a bold proposal to the government. He said, "From now on, our meat guild will no longer directly supply meat to the government. We're willing to pay money instead, a sum called the guild exemption fee. You take the money and buy the meat on the open market yourselves. It saves us trouble, and it's more convenient for you too." Unexpectedly, the request was approved. This caused a sensation at the time. It marked the birth of an entirely new relationship between government and commerce. Previously, the government's exploitation of merchants was direct and in kind. Now, through collective bargaining, the guild had transformed this feudal-style corvée obligation into a modern-style, currency-based fiscal relationship. Behind this lay the Song Dynasty's highly developed commodity economy, in which currency had already become the primary medium of social exchange. The government also discovered that collecting money was more efficient than collecting goods. Listening to the workers' discussion, you feel that the Wenjiao lacquerware in your hands isn't merely merchandise. Behind each piece lies a complex production network, shrewd merchants, powerful guilds, and an enormous bureaucratic empire constantly engaged in a game of wits with them all. After a busy morning, lunchtime arrives. The foreman distributes a few steamed cakes. Chewing on the dry, bland cake, your mouth feels desperately bland. A veteran worker you know well reads your expression and says with a smile, "Come on, I'll take you somewhere good, my treat." You thread through the noisy wharf district and arrive at a relatively quiet street. The old worker leads you into a tea house. It's not large, but it's kept quite clean. Calligraphy and paintings by notable figures hang as signboards at the entrance. A few branches of seasonal fresh flowers are arranged in the corner. The air is filled with a faint fragrance of tea and steam. This is the quintessential social venue of the Song Dynasty. From high officials and nobles down to peddlers and laborers, everyone can find a place for themselves in a tea house. Of course, tea houses also come in various grades. High-end ones boast not only luxurious decor, but also live music, storytelling, and opera naturally at no small cost. The kind you've come to is aimed at ordinary citizens. Spend a few small coins, sit down, rest your feet, drink a bowl of tea, and have a chat. You find an empty seat. A waiter immediately approaches with warm enthusiasm. He is what's known as a tea doctor. You might find this strange. In ancient times, wasn't Dr. Diboshi a very high official title or scholarly rank? How did a tea house waiter come to be called a doctor? There are different views on the origin of this title. One holds that it reflects Song society's respect for professional skill. Tea house waiters were so accomplished in their tea preparation techniques that their expertise was comparable to a doctor's scholarship, earning them the honorific tea doctor. Another view suggests it may have originally been a playful folk nickname or joke that, through frequent use, simply became the conventional term. The old worker is clearly a regular here, without glancing at the menu board. He tells the tea doctor directly, 2 bowls of plain thirst-quenching tea, and show us some tea painting tricks. The tea doctor responds with a cheerful right away, and soon brings 2 steaming bowls of tea. It's just ordinary tea leaves boiled bitter and astringent, but very refreshing. You take a sip and feel a good deal of your fatigue melt away. Then comes the main attraction. The tea doctor sets out an exquisite tea set on an adjacent table. A black Aijian tea bowl, a bamboo tea whisk, and a small jar of fine tea powder. What he's about to perform is the Song Dynasty's most popular and technically demanding method of drinking tea. Iti Dian Chai, the art of whisk tea? You watch as he first warms the tea bowl with hot water, then uses a teaspoon to place a small pinch of green tea powder into the bowl. Adds a small amount of hot water and works the powder into a thick paste. Then, with one hand holding a straight-spouted kettle, he pours hot water into the bowl in an extremely fine, rhythmic stream, while with the other hand, he uses the tea whisk to rapidly rotate and strike within the bowl. This process is called striking the whisk or turning the whisk. Something magical happens under the whisk's agitation. A thick layer of snowy white, delicate foam rises on the surface of the tea, just like the milk froth on a cappuccino today. This foam layer is called the soup blossom. The quality of whisked tea depends on whether the soup blossom is pure white and fine texture, and whether it can bite the bowl, clinging to the bowl's walls for a long time without dissipating. But that's not all. This tea doctor is clearly an expert. He continues using the stream of water from the kettle to skillfully draw a simple sketch of a flying bird on the already formed soup blossom. This is the legendary tea painting art, the latte art of the ancient world. The onlooking customers all break into admiring exclamations. You and the old worker are mesmerized. You never imagined a simple bowl of tea could yield so many tricks. This relentless pursuit of skill and aesthetics had elevated tea drinking from an everyday physiological need to the level of artistic performance and social competition. At the time, the upper classes were wildly enthusiastic about Yiducha tea competitions to see whose whisking technique was more masterful, whose soup blossom was superior. This fashion even directly influenced manufacturing. The Jianjian bowls, produced at the Jian kilns in Fujian, became world famous precisely because their black glaze best set off the delicate beauty of white soup blossoms, making them the standard equipment for tea competitors. Looking at that exquisite, painting-like bowl of tea, then at the humble, unadorned bowl of plain tea in your own hands, you suddenly feel that this small tea house is like a microcosm of the entire great Song society. It contains both the refined art of the highbrow and the simple life of the common folk coexisting, without conflict, together, constituting the splendor and authenticity of this era. Lunch break is almost over. You and the old worker leave the tea house and head back to the warehouse to resume work. Halfway there, you suddenly remember. There's a batch of heavy cargo to unload this afternoon, and a few steamed cakes from this morning definitely won't sustain you. You tell the old worker, I need to go buy something more to eat, or I won't have the energy this afternoon. The old worker laughs, pointing to a restaurant across the street called Panlu Tavern. Buy? Just have them deliver it. You're taken aback. A big place like that delivers to us? Of course, the old worker gives you a look that says, you're too young. It's called a Gizuo Huan, order, and deliver, in Baiyanging. As long as you're not in too remote an area, restaurants big and small all offer this service. With that, he waves at a waiter standing at the restaurant entrance. The waiter, sharp-eyed, immediately jogs over, all smiles. What would you two gentlemen like? In the Song Dynasty, whether it's one of the 72 flagship establishments like Panlu, or those simpler Idiodian, or even roadside food stalls, many of them provide delivery service. Customers only need to call out from home or their workplace, and a waiter will come to take the order, then deliver the food once it's ready. This convenience makes you feel as though you're living 1,000 years in the future. You and the old worker pool some money and order a portion of Grandma Kao's meat pie and a bowl of jiajia thick soup, both famous delicacies mentioned in Wadi Eastern capital. A dream of splendor. The waiter notes down your address and says it'll be delivered right away. Sure enough, before long, the waiter arrives at your warehouse at a trot, carrying an ingenious food box. He opens it and hands over the meat pie and soup. You're amazed to find that the soup is still piping hot. You can't help asking. It's quite a distance. How is this still so hot? The waiter proudly pats one of the bowls in his hand. You look closely and realize the bowl has a special structure. It's double-layered, with a hollow space in between. The waiter explains, this is called a wen pan, a warming dish. Before delivery, we pour hot water into this interlayer, so the food stays warm all the way here. This is essentially an ancient insulated lunchbox. This small invention reflects an extremely mature and fiercely competitive service industry. When delivery service becomes commonplace, shops no longer compete solely on the taste of their food, but also on delivery speed, service attitude, and even the temperature of the food when it reaches the customer's hands. The Shi Yin Panning is the secret weapon in this service quality arms race. You bite into the warm, fragrant meat pie and feel energy flooding back through your body. No matter how heavy the afternoon's work, you're not afraid. But the afternoon's work is indeed heavy, a boatload of porcelain shipped from the south. You and your coworkers carefully move crate after crate of porcelain from the ship to the warehouse, sweating profusely. During a break in the work, you straighten your back, wipe the sweat away, and happen to look up. In the distance, towering above the city's buildings, you spot a tall structure, a brick platform, topped with a small pavilion, like a tower. You ask the old worker beside you, "What's that?" "That's a Wangwo Lao, a fire watchtower," the old worker tells you. "A fire watchtower? You've never heard of it." "That's right," the old worker says. "It's for spotting fires. Up on top, men stand watch around the clock, sharp-eyed as hawks. The moment they spot smoke or flames from any house, they immediately sound the alarm bell. Down below is stationed a squad of soldiers called Aikian Wobing, fire suppression troops. When the alarm sounds, they grab their firefighting equipment and rush to the scene. Fast as anything, you're stunned. You'd assume that in ancient cities, when a fire broke out, neighbors simply grabbed buckets and ran to help. You never imagined Bianjing had such a professional fire brigade. The old worker, seeing your astonishment, warms to the subject. He tells you this system is no mere decoration. It genuinely works. The Kaifeng Prefecture specifically established a firefighting institution, dividing the entire city into multiple defense zones. Each zone is equipped with a squad of fire suppression troops and a complete set of firefighting equipment. These troops are elite soldiers who undergo rigorous regular training, so they respond swiftly and operate with practiced skill. Therefore, whenever a fire breaks out in Kaifeng, there's usually no need for civilians to get involved. The professional teams extinguish it quickly. This system can be called the world's earliest state-funded, garrison-based urban public fire service. It predates similar organizations in Europe by centuries. You ask curiously, so what equipment do they use to fight fires? "Oh, there's plenty," the old worker says, rattling them off like a familiar inventory. Large and small water buckets, sprinklers, axes, saws, ladders, heavy ropes, iron helmets. And then there are some really impressive pieces of kit like the shuride, a water bag made from an entire ox or horse hide, capable of holding several hundred jine of water. A bamboo pipe over a yizhang long is attached to the front. Several men carry it and can shoot water up to very high buildings. There's also something called a jietong, essentially a giant syringe made from a large bamboo tube that can squirt water into the fire. Listening to these descriptions, a vivid image forms in your mind. Alarm bells clamoring atop the fire watch tower, troops swiftly deploying below, carrying all manner of curious equipment as they charge toward the blaze. It's practically an ancient special forces unit, of course. Some argue that although these fire suppression troops served as firefighters, they were fundamentally soldiers, part of the state's military apparatus. Stationed throughout the city, they served not only to fight fires, but simultaneously to surveil citizens, maintain public order, and suppress unrest. From this perspective, the fire watch tower was both a safety outpost, protecting citizens' property, and a surveillance tower monitoring social activity. This model of combining military and civilian functions integrating disaster response with stability maintenance, was perhaps a defining characteristic of Song Dynasty urban management. Just as you're pondering this, the foreman's shout rings out, telling you to stop slacking. You snap back to attention and resume the hauling work. But in your heart, you feel a new sense of security. You know that in this prosperous, crowded city, vigilant pairs of eyes are stationed high atop the fire watch towers, silently guarding everyone's safety. You pass through a lively little market, a favorite haunt of women. There are stalls selling ornamental hairpins and flowers, displaying all kinds of silk flowers and paper flowers for women to wear in their hair. Another stall specializes in face washing compounds, reportedly made from various herbal medicines and bean flour, said to make the skin fair and smooth, the most popular skincare product of the time. These little stalls together form the vibrant, secular life of this city. At last, a hard day's work is done. You receive today's wages. A few dozen copper coins isn't much, but it's enough for a good meal and a show. You decide to splurge and visit the city's most famous entertainment center, the Iwashi, the Pleasure District. Following the crowd, you arrive at the South Wa, the so-called Yumwashi, also called Wiji or Yiwazin, was the Song Dynasty's fixed, comprehensive entertainment venue and one of the era's greatest inventions. It was like an enormous cultural marketplace containing many small performance venues called gulan. Some of these gulan were simple, just a fenced-off patch of open ground. Others were quite elaborate, with proper stages inside the Yiwash. From morning to night, various performances rotated in succession, spectacularly lively. The moment you step inside, you're engulfed by a wave of clamor. The air is a mixture of sweat, food, and cosmetics. Hawkers' cries, cheering, the sound of instruments, chatter, and laughter endless. You see acrobats performing tightrope walking and pole climbing. Puppeteers animate their little puppets so vividly they seem alive. There are izajua performances, an early form of drama, with both spoken and sung portions, comedic plots that have the audience roaring with laughter. As for what the Iwashin actually looked like, later scholars have never fully figured it out, since no complete washi structure has survived. People can only speculate based on textual records and scattered clues in old painting. Some believe that Iwashin was a rather haphazard area, composed of various temporary sheds like a big market. Others, drawing on paintings like the Yi map of Westlake's clear expanse, have inferred that some large washing, such as Qianhu Gatewasi in linen, were actually neatly planned. Square building complexes where the Igiwan consisted of multi-story structures arranged in concentric layers, possibly even publicly funded cultural facilities, built by the government. You can't afford the ticketed grand performances. You squeeze into the liveliest gulan, where on Shuhawawa, storytelling is underway. Shuahua is what we call Akshuashun today, and it was the most popular program in the Yaiwashi. Moreover, Song Dynasty storytelling had already developed into a highly professional and specialized art. According to records and endnotes on the capital city and similar texts, storytellers at the time were mainly divided into 4 schools. The first was called Ik Xiaoshua, short stories, also known as Hinjier Ka. They told folk tales on every conceivable subject, love stories, detective stories, that is, gong-on fiction, and tales of gods and ghosts. The one you're listening to now is telling a story about a fox spirit repaying a debt of gratitude full of twists and turns. Utterly captivating. The second was called Yanxing, history telling. They specialized in the rise and fall of dynasties across the ages and stories of war, such as the histories of the 3 kingdoms and the 5 dynasties. This type usually involved only speech without singing, grand in style, and especially popular among male audiences. The third was called Ikshujing, scripture telling. They told stories from Buddhist sutras, interspersed with moralizing verse, urging people toward virtue, carrying on the tradition of Tang Dynasty unwind transformation texts. The fourth was the most distinctive, called Hashang, harmonized voices. This performance form involved two people collaborating, one asking questions, the other answering, or the two bickering back and forth. It was somewhat like today's Qiangsheng, crosstalk, or stand-up comedy. Mostly comedic banter, extremely funny. This high degree of professional specialization shows that the entertainment market of the time was already quite mature. Audiences could choose different types of content according to their tastes. Want history? Want go find a Jiangxing performer? Want laughs? Go watch the Yixing act. This awareness of market segmentation was absolutely world-leading at the time. You're completely absorbed until the storyteller slaps his guangino storyteller's block and says, if you want to know what happens next, come back for the next installment. Only then do you snap back to reality. The surrounding audience tosses copper coins into the plate on stage. You fish out 2 copper coins and toss them over. It's not much, but it's the best affirmation of the master's brilliant performance. You walk out of the whitewashing, deeply satisfied. The sky has gradually darkened. Emerging from the yuawashi, night has fallen. But Bianjing has not grown quiet because of it. Quite the opposite. It's welcoming the start of another round of revelry. Shops on both sides of the street light up their lanterns one after another, illuminating the entire district as bright as day. This is the world-famous Bianjing night market. Since the abolition of curfew decades ago, this city has become a true city that never sleeps. Shops open during the day continue operating at night. And even more are night market vendors who only set up stalls after dark. Walking home, you pass through the famous Yuqiao night market. The liveliness here surpasses even the daytime market. Food stalls are packed one next to another. Fragrant aromas wafting everywhere. There are stalls selling roasted meat, jerky, and all kinds of cooked dishes: goose, duck, tripe, lungs, eel, and more. You even see stalls selling lamb intestines and sliced lamb head. These foods, which might seem a bit hardcore by today's standards, were hugely popular accompaniments to wine at the time. The capital's residents call going out to eat at night ziojiao, and many people keep browsing and eating until well past midnight before heading home. You also pass through Mahang Street Night Market, which specializes in various distinctive snacks: pickled long beans, sausages, griddle cakes, vegetable cakes, everything you could want. The air is filled with the aroma of food and the hubbub of people, making you feel this city is brimming with inexhaustible vitality. Of course, such flourishing nightlife also brings new challenges for the city's administrators. To maintain nighttime public order, the government established an entirely new management system. At street corners throughout the city, outposts called Zhongshenpo, military patrol stations, were set up. Each station had 3 to 5 soldiers responsible for nighttime patrols, catching thieves, and guarding against fire. This nocturnal patrol force was the guardian of the city that never sleeps. Regarding the abolition of the curfew system, later generations have offered different interpretations. One view holds that this was a remarkably far-sighted piece of top-level design by the Song rulers. They proactively broke with the strict ward system and curfew traditions inherited from the Tang Dynasty, encouraging commercial development and thereby giving rise to a thriving night economy. This was an enlightened policy guided from the top down. Another view, however, suggests it may have been more of a forced outcome. As the commodity economy flourished, citizens' demand for nighttime activities grew ever stronger, and the number of people violating curfew kept rising. The old system was completely unable to adapt to the new social reality, and the government's enforcement costs kept mounting. Ultimately, the government had no choice but to bow to popular will, legalizing a situation in which the law could not punish the masses, and officially recognizing the status of the night market. This was a bottom-up institutional transformation driven by societal vitality. Regardless, for you, this change brought tangible benefit. After a full day's work, you can still enjoy such rich and colorful urban life. In previous dynasties, this would have been unimaginable. You thread through the bustling night market and turn into your own quiet alley. In the distance, you see a small lantern hanging by your front door. Its orange glow looking especially warm in the darkness. You know your family is waiting for you. Today is a special day. You push open the door, a rush of warmth and the aroma of food greet you. Your family hasn't gone to sleep yet. They're preparing for tonight's main event. Because today is the 15th of the first month, the Shangyuan Festival. The Shangyuan Festival, what we call the Lantern Festival, was the grandest and most festive of all holidays in the Song Dynasty. The court would grant several days off for it, and during the festival, the official curfew was suspended, encouraging all citizens to go out and view the lanterns, sharing the bright moon with the people, rejoicing together. Your family has already prepared the traditional festival food. On the table sits a steaming bowl of ichuanzing, essentially the prototype of Yitan Yuan, glutinous rice flour wrapped around sweet filling, boiled in water until they float to the surface, symbolizing reunion and completeness. By the Song Dynasty, this food was already extremely popular, a must-eat treat for the Lantern Festival. Even more interesting are several small objects on the table. They're made from wheat flour or bean flour, steamed into shapes resembling tiny oil lamps, about 2 d tall, with a little well on top. These are called Dinshan, Mo lamp-shaped pastries, a special folk custom for the Lantern Festival. Your mother is pouring sesame oil into the wells of these little pastries, then using a red thread as a wick and lighting them. These small, edible lamp pastries serve as both festive decoration and a vessel for hopes of brightness and a bountiful harvest in the new year. Your family gathers together, eating the sweet and glutinous warifuanzing, chatting about the day's happenings. You tell them about the wonderful storytelling you heard at the Iwashi. They eagerly discuss where to go see the lanterns tonight. The entire house is filled with festive joy and anticipation. Regarding the origins of the Shangyuan Festival, it can actually be traced back to the Han Dynasty and is related to the Taoist belief in the heavenly official granting blessing. Later, with the introduction of Buddhism, the custom of lighting lamps in honor of the Buddha was absorbed. By the Tang Dynasty, especially during Empress Wu Zetian's reign, the political significance of the Shangyuan Festival grew. Rulers discovered that hosting grand lantern festivals was an excellent way to display national power and win popular support. As a result, the scale of the lantern festivals kept growing, and the trend towards secularization and entertainment intensified. By your time, in the Song Dynasty, the Shangyuan Festival had evolved into a days-long grand carnival with full public participation. It retained ancient traditions while brimming with the distinctly civic cultural flavor of this era. It was a melting pot of religion, politics, folk customs, and commercial entertainment. After finishing a bowl of yifuanzing, you feel warmth spreading through your whole body. Outside the window, you can already hear faint music and voices in the distance. Your younger siblings are tugging impatiently at your sleeves, urging you to hurry out. You stand, straighten your clothes. Tonight, you'll join your family and plunge into that ocean of lantern light to witness with your own eyes the most magnificent, most dreamlike face of this great capital. Your family steps out the door and joins the tide of people on the main thoroughfare. Tonight, it seems as though every last person in Bianjing has poured out of their homes. The streets are a sea of humanity, shoulder pressed against shoulder. Several times you even feel your feet leave the ground, carried forward by the sheer press of the crowd. Your destination is the most exciting place in the entire city. The square before Shuande Gate, at the southern end of the Imperial Palace. That is the core exhibition area for the annual Shangyuan Lantern Festival. Before you even arrive, the sight before you has already rendered you speechless. The entire imperial street is decorated with enormous colorful lanterns resplendent in gold and jade, bright as daylight. Shops and pavilions along the street have also hung out all manner of novel lanterns. You notice some fun-loving young people wearing strange ornaments on their heads. Some have fashioned a giant moth out of white paper and wear it atop their heads, called a night moth. Others are even more creative. They've mixed jute paste with charcoal powder to form small balls, strung them on iron wire, and lit them ablaze atop their heads, sparks flying proudly called fire-raised eyebrows. The air is thick with the lingering fragrance left by the jeweled horses and carved carriages of the wealthy passing by, mingled with the sweetness of food and the warmth of the crowd, forming a scent uniquely belonging to the Shangyuan festival, intoxicating and heady. At last, you squeeze your way to the front of Shawande Gate. You look up and behold the legendary miracle that appears only during the Lantern Festival. The Yeoshanan, the Lantern Mountain. It is an immense mountain of lanterns, constructed from colored silk, brocade, and countless lamp fixtures. Rising over a dozen zhang in height and spanning more than 300 paces in width, it truly looks like a multicolored mountain peak standing in the center of the square. The mountain is studded with innumerable colored lanterns, each painted with stories of immortals and folk figures. At the center of the mountain hangs an enormous plaque, inscribed with 4 gleaming golden characters, Xuanhe rejoicing with the people. This alone is stunning enough, but what truly beggars your belief is that this lantern mountain is Gala. On either side of the Gaoshan, you see enormous statues, Manjushri Bodhisattva riding a lion and Samantabhadra Bodhisattva riding a white elephant. Their fingers are gently moving, and from their fingertips, 5 slender streams of water spray forth. You also see men using large Ilulu pulley mechanisms to hoist water to the very top of the lantern mountain and store it in a wooden cabinet. At a designated moment, the cabinet's sluice gate opens, and a stream of clear water cascades from the summit, creating a spectacular artificial waterfall. This is a spectacle that seems achievable only by immortals. You simply cannot fathom how the craftsmen of the time used mechanics and hydraulics to create such unimaginable dynamic scenery. After lingering before the great Gaoshan lantern for a long while, you and your family begin drifting with the crowd to explore the other amusements across the square. The night of the Shangyuan festival is not merely a feast for the eyes, it's a paradise for play. You spot a brightly lit area surrounded by a large crowd, from which bursts of cheering and laughter erupt repeatedly. You push your way in and discover it's a lantern riddle area. Exquisitely crafted gauze lanterns, each bear a paper slip with a riddle written on it. This is an intellectual game deeply beloved by Song people, especially the educated literati, who are endlessly enthusiastic about it. Just then, your younger brother is drawn to an even more curious lantern nearby. It's a Yezomating, a revolving horse lantern. Its outer layer is a translucent gauze shade, with a candle lit inside. Magically, the silhouettes of figures and horses projected onto the gauze are continuously rotating and moving, like a silent shadow play. You lean in curiously and discover its principle is as simple as it is ingenious. The hot air current generated by the burning candle rises and pushes a lightweight axle fitted with paper cutouts inside the lantern. As the axle turns, the silhouettes move. This small toy perfectly harnesses the physical principle of hot air convection. You can't help but admire the ingenuity of folk craftsmen. You continue onward. Street performers are everywhere, some swallowing swords and breathing fire, some performing contortionist acts and squeezing into barrels, others staging comic short plays, inzayu, that have the crowd roaring with laughter. In such a festive, liberated atmosphere, some of the social rules normally strictly enforced, temporarily loosen. You notice many young women out enjoying themselves, accompanied by family members. They are gorgeously dressed, laughing and chatting, becoming another beautiful scene beneath the lantern light. This makes the Shangyuan festival, in a sense, also an ancient Valentine's Day. It provides young women normally confined to their chambers and men outside a rare opportunity to see each other openly, even to converse. Countless poems and NCA lyrics record these romantic encounters beneath the lantern glow. Wu Yangshu once wrote the timeless lines, "The moon rises above the willow tips. We promise to meet at dusk," depicting exactly a lantern festival evening's rendezvous. And Jin Kiji's famous El Shi poem, Green Jade Cup, Lantern Festival, took the drama of searching and discovery to its ultimate expression. I searched for her 1,000 times in the crowd. Then, turning back by chance, there she was, where the lantern light was dim. Over there, not far away, you see a young man seizing the opportunity of the riddle guessing to strike up a conversation with a girl. Both wear shy expressions, yet their eyes gleam with smiles. You don't know how their story will unfold, but you feel that, on this lantern-bright night, anything beautiful seems possible. The hours of revelry fly by. Before you know it, the drum tower in the distance sounds the third watch. It's midnight. The crowd on the square begins to thin. The city, boisterous all evening, finally starts to show signs of weariness. Your family feels tired too, and you follow the stream of people homeward.